So for 3D layers in Adobe After Effects, I created this document. So maybe it's clearest that I first show what we are aiming to do, and then I'll show the stages. Let's go from 2 views to 1 view. I'll show this to you as well at some point. Anyway, there's a bird flying in the forest, and if I click play, this is how it looks like. The camera is following, and if you look closely, there's a light beam following the bird. Very simple. I mean, simple use of 3D layers and cameras. Because typically when you have 3D layers in After Effects, then you can also use different cameras, and then you can use lights. Because basically what you're creating then is, well, not quite a 3D space, but 2.5D, like they call it in Adobe. So if I take the camera tool and go around, then you can see that, okay, we have layers. There's the light. I'll turn it off for a while so you may see more what the scene consists of. So there are these 2D layers that are in the 3D space. And there's a camera which moves following the bird. And then there's also a parallel light over here attached to the bird. Okay, but let's start from the beginning. I'll go maybe to Illustrator first. Here's my original image, and let's create another document so I can, because I want to show you what kind of what sort of storyboard I started with. There we go. Okay. Now that I'm in Illustrator, I'll just use this brush tool in order to show you what I'm doing. Okay. So I started with a very simple storyboard, as I said. Oh, maybe create a frame with a rectangle tool first. I wanted to have a couple of trees. mostly conifers or pine trees. And I wanted the camera to pan to the left. From here to here. And I wanted to have a bird flying through that forest. And keep in mind that a storyboard is not a comic book. When you indicate movement, you indicate it with arrows. And if I would have made it like an official storyboard for the use of somebody else, then I would have drawn a little bit more carefully, and I would have written here pan right. So I was not on listening to Tuomo's storyboard lesson, so I don't know if he has told you about camera movements. Did he tell you what the difference is between panning a camera and tilting a camera? I'm asking you. Like,
I think you didn't mention this.
Yeah, well, it is kind of understandable, but he didn't specifically talk about this.
So I think I'll take my phone here so I can show you what I mean with that. Okay, I stop sharing for a while so you can see me. Okay, so okay, I put it on the speaker view, but for some reason I can't see myself here. Anyway, I hope you can see it. Anyway, when you use your own phone, for filming something, you typically, when you want to look up, you do it like you would do with your head. You tilt it up and you tilt it down, right? And typically also many people use their phones in the vertical direction, not the horizontal. Anyway, often when you have like a film camera and a film set, you don't do this kind of tilting movement. You or to the side like this, but you move the camera upwards and downwards in a panning motion, or pan it like this. Interesting. Of course, the phone is mirroring the screen. Okay. Anyway, so panning and tilting. And did Tuomo talk to you about zooms and dollies?
No, I don't think so.
So zooming well, all of you have done zooming probably on your phone when you do a video. You just click the zoom button and then it zooms. And if you have an actual camera with, then you will just let the lens zoom, which means that you don't move your camera, but the optics is doing the going to the zooming in or zooming out. But in real filmmaking, or in proper filmmaking at least, mostly filmmakers try to avoid zooming in, because that, and instead they use a dolly movement, which means that the camera moves closer or further away. And there are all kinds of methods for doing this in a smooth motion, starting from building rails for the camera or some sort of other contraption with wheels, or even robots that move the camera around, robot arms. That happens a lot in television production. But anyway, when you're doing storyboarding, even for animation, remember these things. With 2D animation, you typically don't do much of the tilting movements. You'll see quite soon in After Effects why that is so. And also, if you do a lot of zoom ins with any kind of way, be it zooming or dollying in 2D, then you'll have to, if you have images with outlines, then the outlines will become fatter. So in a motion that goes where the camera dollies towards the subject, then you'll have to, if you have outlines, you'll have to see that the outlines also become thinner. So you'll have to draw it, basically draw the picture again, or you need to use a software which makes the outlines thinner, or you don't use outlines. That's the solution I did. And now let's go back to the sharing the screen. So here this was a panning motion, like I already said. And let's go see the image that I did create. You notice that it doesn't have any outlines. It's simply because I wanted to go close to the images, or I wanted to make a forest out of 2 trees. I was kind of in a hurry, so if this is not a very quality image, it means, well, I made it in like an hour. So my plan was to create only 2 trees and a simple bird, and then maybe a background, and then import that, all of that in After Effects, and then make duplicates of the trees and change them a little bit there. Also, it was not an accident that I used Illustrator for this purpose, because Illustrator, as you know, is a vector program, and as After Effects is an Adobe program, it's able to show vector images in a crisp way. If I had made these in Photoshop, I would have had to make make them pretty in a big resolution anyway, or so that I could have put the trees closer without the pixels showing. Now that these are vector images, I don't need to think about pixels. Oh, by the way, when I created this document for Illustrator, I might want to show you. I took the film and video and this HD TV, this resolution 1920 times 1080 pixels. Of course, if I wanted to do 4K, well, that would have been the pixel measurements for that. But I wasn't interested in 4K right now. Okay, I'll close this one. And other things that I wanted to show you about this document, because I'm not going to go into much detail, but a little bit stuff. Yeah, I did create a background. And by the way, the background was too small, but well, I could have made this background in After Effects as well. But I wanted to have something here as a background. Anyway, I also used layers in Illustrator, and I named them. And here you can see my layers. So we'll see quite soon how to import this. And the interesting thing is that when you create Photoshop or Illustrator documents with layers and then import them into After Effects, After Effects will remember the layers and put them in the same order. But we'll see how that goes. Okay, let's go back to After Effects. And I think I'll create a new composition for this. But first, I think I'll name this one First Bird. Okay. Then a new composition. Called the Second Bird. And HDTV 1080, like I already made the Illustrator document in that resolution or pixel size, then it makes sense. Square pixels, yes, this is automatic, and frame rate is 25, which is the European video format. And I'll click here, preserve frame rate when nested, and preserve resolution when nested, in case I want to do pre-comps or nested compositions. Here we go. And now what I need is the project window, which is a little bit hidden right now. Here we go. I already imported my forest here, as you can see, the Illustrator file, but I'll show you again how it's done. So double click the project window, and then find the file. There it is. Forest illustration. Import as, yeah, this is quite important. Don't import it as footage, because then it won't import the layers in the right way. What I use is this composition retain layer sizes. So you want to bring it as a composition. And then click import, importing selected items. And now what it did was it imported it twice. So I will just undo this, undo import, so I don't have the same document here several times. However, whatever changes I make in the original Illustrator document, I can then go afterwards and refresh those changes here. So, okay, so let's say, yeah, I think I did some changes to the this background. So I will right-click there and click reload footage. And it will now, well, reload it, refresh the image according to the changes that I made. So very practical, I think. And as you probably noticed, there was also something called replace footage. So if you want to totally replace one of these images with another, then that's possible too. Okay, so it imported the file as a composition, which is over here. I could now, of course, open this composition by just double-clicking. There we go. And then continue from here. But then it wouldn't be in the, well, all the layers are in order, which is nice. But then this time I did use the right resolution and everything, but sometimes when you make pictures, let's say in Photoshop or in Illustrator, you don't use these exact measurements. And when you import the layers as a composition, then when you double click this, then the size will be wrong. So, okay, this would be one way of starting to work with a composition. Another way would be to first create a composition, an empty one. Okay, and now like this one, the second bird, and then just open up the layers from the file folder and drag them here into the composition. So there's two ways of doing things. And now you can see that it imported all the layers in one heap. So basically I could have used this composition directly. but then just set up in the composition settings a couple of things straight, like the length of the composition and also here everything right. So this time it didn't matter how I did it. Anyway, yeah, and there's, yeah, and I know there's some background noise. My son just woke up and is making breakfast. So now it helps that the layers have all been named already in Illustrator, because After Effects does remember the names. Okay, Tausta I could rename in English as background. Also, what I noticed when I imported these, that the background looked a little bit boring. So what I did was I imported an image that I took a while ago, a forest image, and put that in the background. And in order to make it show, I toggled the switches at modes so that I can see these layer modes, and changed the mode of this image to color burn. So actually I did quite a lot of testing here, like what would look best. Add was too bright for my senses. Multiply was a little bit bleh. Then let's see what linear burn would give me. It's almost the same as color burn. Yeah, but in the end I liked color burn best, maybe because it is November, and when you go to the forest it's pretty dark there. Anyway, I wasn't sure if I liked this, the way the trees were here, and I did have in mind to put them, to duplicate them and so on. But let's first make them into 3D layers. And actually everything else but the background. Oh, maybe I should make the background 3D layer too. So where do I find the 3D layers? I need to toggle on the switches and modes again so that I get these modes here. This one here is the 3D layer, and I can decide which layer will be a 3D layer and which won't be. And I don't know why it went automatically to the custom view. Maybe it's something that After Effects does now. Anyway, it does make things clearer that it goes automatically there into the custom view. We were going to go there anyway. So now I'm one by one clicking the layers into 3D layers. And now they are in 3D space. By the way, if you're wondering where to find the normal view again, it's over here, custom view and active camera. And then now we are back in the normal view. So custom view, you can navigate here in custom view with the camera tool, this one. You can get it by clicking C on the keyboard. And there's a fun thing to know that, yeah, I'm now dragging the camera tool. A fun thing that when I click C another time, then other camera options will spring up, like here, the tilting of the camera can go sideways and up and down, or zooming the camera like this. Okay. So this is how you go around in the camera view, or in the custom view, sorry. And if you have a bigger screen than I have, then you can click, instead of one view, you can click 2 views horizontal, and now you can, just as in any 3D program, you can say that, okay, this other window shows another view. For instance, you could look at the active camera view from this window, and also fit so that I can see all of it. So I think this is quite practical. I'll make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so now that everything is a 3D layer, it doesn't make any change to the picture unless we use those 3D layers. So let's use them. I mean, we can put the different objects further away and closer. So I don't need to zoom in, and I don't need to resize the images. I'll just put them actually in the foreground or in the background. By the way, I talked about the vector images, that they look nice and crisp. They don't actually. If I would now go close to the image, there would be pixels, because I need to click on a specific button here, which is this one, for vector layer continuously rasterize. And this will make it look nice and crisp, even no matter how close I go. Okay, so what I will next do, by the way, the background image is not quite as large as I would like to have. You remember that I wanted to make the camera movement from the right to the left, and right now the image is not wide enough. So what I could do, of course, I could duplicate this image and put them side by side, or I could just do the unthinkable and just grab its edges. Let's see, is it? Okay, maybe it is better to have the image there twice. Okay, I'll do it in this view this time. So you remember probably how to duplicate layers. You go to the timeline, click on the layer, and click Control D or Command D if you're on a Mac. And now I want all of these layers to be there the whole time, so I'm not starting to change how long they are. But remember, this is how you do it. Grab the layer from its start or end, and then just make it shorter or longer. So now what I need to do is I need to put these two layers side by side. So that when the camera moves here, then there won't be a big difference. Or I could have just found an image with a longer forest. With more time, I would have done that. I would have prepared this background image in Photoshop so that it's long enough for this camera move. But yeah, now I'm doing it in the dirty way. Anyway, what I also need to do, I need to stretch this background, this color image a little bit. And now it's taking the other one. I'll just lock the background. Oh, come on. Can't be that hard. Okay, and to be sure, I make it a little bit bigger vertically too. There we go. Do you have any questions so far? Okay, so let's continue. What I want to do next, I want to duplicate these trees still a couple of times so I can get more trees in the forest. Also, I want to move them a little bit around in the Z direction. Like here you see, now that I have made these into 3D objects, they have 3 directions. There's X, Y, and Z. So whenever you want to move them to the front or to the back, then it's always the Z. And at some point I need to decide where the bird will start its flight. But for now, I'm going to make the forest. Maybe make a duplicate of this tree too. then move it. And maybe make a reflection of this one and make it a little taller. Okay. Let's see. There's my scene to the left, and I don't want it to be so empty. So I'll move some of the trees over here. Duplicate this one and take it over there. One tree could be more in the foreground. And since it's in the foreground, I could make it a little bit bigger. Maybe duplicate this one too. And so on and so forth. What I could do also, I could change the color of these trees a little bit so that they don't look quite the same. So I make this one a little bit more bluish maybe. Let's go to color correction and curves or levels. Or maybe a tint. Bluish tint. And not quite as much. Okay. I'll keep it like that for now. All right. So now that there is a forest, what I need to do is to create a camera. Or should I first make the bird fly? Maybe I should first make the bird fly and then create the camera that will follow. So we'll see which is the better one. As you might notice, this all becomes a little bit slower. If I had a more effective or powerful computer, this would not slow down so much. And that's also one reason why I will make the light layer at the end, because once I add lights here, it will become even slower. for the rendering. Oh, and at this point, it might be nice to save this project, because it has happened to me a couple of times that the that After Effects just tilts in the middle of a project where I have had 3D layers and lights and cameras. Okay, so where should my bird start flying? Where is it still safe for the camera to follow the bird? Okay. Maybe here. And I will move the camera later when I have it. But anyway, this would be, well, you know how to make keyframes. To make it quicker, I'll just click P for the position. And this is like a very fast and dirty flight without much tilting around. So we'll just use the position and not the rotation. So there's the first keyframe by clicking the stopwatch. Then I'll go forward in time, maybe 5 seconds or 6, and move the bird. And I do want to have a little bit of an arc in the movement. So I'll just use these vector handles to do the arc. And then I want to follow the bird's flight still to the left. So now I will use this side to follow the bird, this custom view, and the camera. Just move it from here, the imaginary camera at this time. Now back to the bird, and I'll change the camera tool, by the way, to the selection tool by clicking V. And make another arc for the bird to fly. And maybe at this point I will also change the Z position of the bird so that it will fly a little bit closer to us. And now I can't see the vector handle, so I take the pen tool and just drag the handle out. Okay, let's see. I'll check how that goes. There it goes. And maybe it would be nice to have one more birch on the left. So I'll duplicate that one. So as you can see, I'm doing part of the compositing right here in the software. Some people like to do their compositing for After Effects already in Photoshop or in Illustrator, and then they just put everything together in After Effects and make things move. What I like to do is I create, well, I do the compositing partly here. Okay. So now it's time to add a camera. Because now you can see that the bird flies out of the picture here. So obviously we'll need a camera to follow it. Okay, so I will create a camera layer, and camera layer is a layer just like any. Well, not just like any, there are camera settings. So I'll go to layer and new, and here you have the camera. Oh, and I don't think we have talked about null objects yet either. Okay, that's for another time. So this might look a little bit scary at first, but it's not very actually. So the important things for now are that I want to have a 2-node camera, and also I don't want to enable depth of field. Depth of field is great. I mean, you can make it make things blur that are not in focus, but when you are working with a program, then it will slow it down a lot if you have the enable depth of field. So you can always go and recheck this box and enable the depth of field if you want to. And yes, it will make it look better if you have the depth of field enabled. But for now, for these working purposes, I won't enable it. Also, you can change the focal length and all kinds of things. And you will find a lot of information on the internet about these things, about the angles of view and film sizes and so on. So I'm not going to start explaining those. So there's the camera 1. And the interesting thing is, by the way, that you can create as many cameras as you want. For instance, if I wanted to have a camera that just showed a close-up of the bird's face, I could put it here on top of this camera, and then that would be what we would see. So remember that all the lengths of all the layers can be adjusted. But anyway, I have my own habits in After Effects, and my habit is to put all the cameras on top. And if I have sounds, and when I have sounds, I put those in the bottom. And it's good that you get also some of your own habits here. I could, of course, also color code these layers. Okay, now all of those are blue, and I can see directly that, okay, here's the camera. And these are for the background. So as a visual person, that helps me to see what is where. Anyway, let's go back to the camera and see how that works. So now I could say, so this is now the active camera, which is basically camera 1 because there's no other active camera in the scene. So now I can go here to see that, okay, there's my active camera. And if I open up the camera layer, I can see that, okay, here are the camera options. So here, if I wanted to click on the depth of field, I could do that, and all other kinds of things here. But I won't touch the zoom because I want to actually move the camera and not zoom in or out. And these kinds of things I can see in the transform options. By the way, all the 3D layers have, if I click open this 3D layers, have the Z dimension as well as the X and Y dimension. And they have other things as well here, like you won't find material options unless your layer is a 3D layer. And this will become important when you have lights. There's you can choose if your layer will cast shadows or not, or if there will be light transmitted through it, and how much, or if it accepts shadows or lights, and so on. So you can find some of these options also in typical 3D programs. By the way, it's also possible to import 3D objects into After Effects. I haven't done that much. Maybe I should. Anyway. So what I want to do is I want to move my camera, and I want to move it with the bird. So one option would be just to make the camera move together with the bird. And I'll first set up the camera so that I can have a good view of the bird, but not so much that I would run into trouble with the background. As you can see, I'm trying to be really careful with that. Like here is the end of the world, so I don't want to go there. So I'll move the camera a little bit closer to the bird. Maybe a little bit down. And again, a bit closer. Yeah. And after that, I will make the first keyframes for the point of interest and for the position. They will go automatically together. So it's important that they are both keyframed for the camera movement. Just that you know, this here is the point of interest. And a couple of warnings. When you are using the camera, don't use a lot of rotation, because that will mess up your composition or your camera movements big time. So also don't do much of tilting with the orientation. I mean, that's well, I've done that a couple of times, and usually what I have to do is I then at some point need to delete the camera and create a new one, because that will mess up the composition. Other things, be careful that you don't get to the end of the word, to the end of your compositions. So see to that when you have camera moves, that they don't move outside of the world, or then make the world bigger. And in After Effects, it's easy to make the world bigger. So what I now could do, I could just move the camera along the bird, but what I actually want to do is I want the camera to follow the bird automatically, because you remember that the bird had some didn't fly in one straight line. So I will just parent the camera to the bird. We have parented stuff before, so you remember how it's done. Here, I parent the camera to the bird, and let's see what happens. And now, if I want to see what happens in the actual active camera window, I'll need to click it active. You can see these small blue marks that now it's going to render this window. This is the active window. If this is active, then it will render that one, but I want to render this one. So now the camera is following the bird along, as you can see. And I want to check if the end of the world, the left end of the world, how it looks like. Uh-oh. This is not good. So I'll need to adjust my end of the world a little bit. And it's this image that is the problem. There we go. Now it's adjusted. So if I want to go back from 2 views to 1 view, then that's okay. Here we go. Then I'll just have to make this to the active camera again. And then I'll just click play and let the computer render. And I think I'll get something to drink in the meantime. Okay. So it seems that it doesn't have the power to render everything on the in the work area. Let's see how far it goes, because there are gaps in the render. Okay. I'll stop and state again, now from the render bit. Okay, that was a little bit weird. So I may need to correct this bit here. This was weird. So back to the bird. Back to the position. And I think the problem lies in the Z position. So I'll go to the last keyframe here by clicking K and change the Z position a little bit. Did I do it? I hope so. Let's see. Nope, still there. Or I could just move the tree a little bit forward. Okay, now it works better. Saving. And then I could add the light layer and hope for the best that it doesn't crash the program. So new layer and light. Does anybody have any questions at this point, by the way, before we go to the lights? Okay, let's go to the lights. What I want for the light to do is also to follow the bird. And there are a couple of options for the lights. The spotlight, parallel light, point light, ambient light. And spotlights are great when you want to have if you want to create a spot for some character. So the spotlight might be a good one here. Parallel light is like a source of light that goes in a very straight way, like maybe if you have a summer morning and the sunlight is coming from quite low at the horizon, then that's a parallel light. A point light is when you have just a small point of light which you could use, for instance, for a lamp. If you have seen a scene with in After Effects with any sorts of street lamps, for instance, or even car lamps, then a point light would be nice. Ambient light is like the light that we have actually now outside here in Tampere, like this sort of light that goes everywhere. But I'll try out how it goes with a spotlight. And of course I can also change the color of the light. Now it's a very bright yellow, and I think I'll keep it that way for now. Also I can change the intensity. Also how big the cone is and if it feathers the cone, but you'll see that soon enough. And what the radius of the cone is, and if it casts shadows or not. And also I can say how dark the shadows will be that it makes. I'll diffuse the shadows a little bit so that they are not truly crisp, but a little bit. Okay, let's see. So now I need to move my spotlight in the right position, obviously, so that it will show my bird. And the spotlight also has a point of interest, as you can see. And right now it's far too small, so I will make it, put the spot a little bit further away and maybe increase its intensity. It all depends on how much I want to affect with the spot. Do you want the bird to see a little bit in front of it or not? Of course, I could go to the custom view and see a little bit better where the spotlight is in 3D space and adjust it here. It's a bit of fiddling. And I can go to the light settings, to the light options whenever I want here in the layer, in the timeline window, I mean, and change the intensity and so on. And it's a little bit more intense. Let's see if the cone angle is bigger. Doesn't change much. Let's make the radius bigger. I could also change it from a spotlight to a parallel light or into a point light and so on. Let's see what it makes with a point light. It will show, well, not a point light, but a parallel light. It will make it a little bit stronger than just the spot. Maybe that would work. And there are other options with a parallel light, as you can see. Okay. And with an ambient light, again, well, this happens. And there is not many options with a parallel light, but I'll go back to the, I mean, with the ambient light. I'll go back to the parallel light, and I think I'm happy with that. And now partly because I'm lazy. I'll just parent the spotlight or my light, the parallel light to the bird. And maybe I'll just call it bird light, so that when I'm coming back to this project at some point, then I will remember which light it was. So I click the layer name and then I click enter, and then I can change the layer name. I click enter again, and now it's been changed. Bird light. Okay, back from custom view to active camera. And this is how it goes. It's far too dark, by the way. I think I'll make it. I'll change the fall of distance and other things so that there will be a little bit more light. Like I said, this is a little bit fiddly. I don't know, it might be too bright right now. It's eating the colors. Yep, better. Okay, so that was lights. And the more lights you have in the scene, the heavier the program will be. So it's best to have the resolution here as automatic. So if there's problems in the rendering, it will automatically go from full to half or third or even a quarter. So now, for instance, it's in third. It's in quarter resolution. But when you're actually rendering it, then remember to put it into full resolution there in the render settings. But if you have it on automatic, then it will at least try to make it in full resolution whenever it can. Okay, and yeah, probably I would find some audio, some bird song from the internet or from my computer. I should have some forest sounds there. I think I showed you the freesound.org last time when we had a session, and the YLE sounds. There are lots of forest sounds and bird sounds over there. So I would probably put that as a background sound. as an ambient sound. But yeah, also if I would be making a real animation scene, I would use a lot more time to do this, but this was like this quite quick and dirty way to make it with not much actual animating happening with the bird itself. Okay, I'll stop the share and stop recording for now.